So 4 pastors took me out to lunch and basically told me to shut the online because of some things that I was posting a few years ago on Facebook, and my answers still stand today. And one brought along his wife. He needed some reinforcement, I guess. And I'm going to tell you what I said and what their response was to me and my reply to them. I was saying things like, sometimes your healing is not in the prayer line, but it's in the grocery line, meaning what you're putting in your basket could be causing you to be sick. And here they come with their pitches and torches. Blasphemy! Calm down. Then I would say things like, God did not call you to be pressured to give money out of obligation or necessity. And then they would get in the inboxes, don't be telling them Negroes that, or they're never going to give like they're supposed to give. Told me that I'm not qualified to say the things that I'm saying. This was years ago, but this conversation came up again yesterday, so I'm going to bring it to the light again and address it. They were saying that you're not qualified to say the things that you're saying. And I would tell them, well, according to Paul, you're not qualified to preach either. It got really, really intense. And to tell them not to give, unless they're giving based upon their heart, that's scripture. And they were saying, well, if you tell them these things about their healing, about their money, they're not going to come to me for it. What they really didn't like was that their members were liking my post. They would go and see who's commenting, and it was their members. It was 4 different pastors. I'm sure there was more, but they weren't brave enough to step up and say anything to me or take me out to lunch, which is going to be one of my main points too. So they were looking at their members liking the post and commenting on the post and sharing the post. And back then I was an ex-first lady, so I already had a following. I was a praise and worship leader and a musician in the church. So I was going all over the city, all over singing. And so then I had a following for that too. So I had a large following in the faith-based world. Now, mind you, the part where they tell me I'm not qualified to speak, let's get into that. They were saying you're not qualified to preach that, although I was an ordained minister at the time. And they say, you're not qualified to speak and preach those things. So then I would say, well, you're not qualified either, according to Paul, because you lack discipline and you're out of shape. All 4 of them had health problems, were out of shape, did not exercise, and did not eat right. Let's go there. 1 Corinthians 9:27. And if you know me, it's not a religious channel, but this is a principle. This is a topic that I want to address about somebody trying to tell you something, but they themselves have not mastered the subject. And they thought they were going to bully me because they were leaders in the church. I care about people, and that was my concern, not about their ego. And this is not about judging people because they're obese, they're fat. If you know me, you know my journey. I'll pin videos where I have a whole fitness journey of me and my family members, me especially pushing towards 200 something pounds, and my whole journey of weight and body. So this is not about that. And so I told them, you lack discipline. You haven't mastered your own body yet. You're preaching and yelling at people every week about controlling the fleshly desires. And y'all are always preaching about sex, drugs, and alcohol. And the body is the temple, and you need to, watch the things that you're putting in it. Y'all are talking about body parts, putting body parts inside of body parts, but you're not addressing what you're putting inside your mouth as far as food or training your body fitness wise. And we're going to get into the text, and I'll get into the commentaries because I notice what a lot of leaders are going to do. Try to see if I'm being biblically correct. I could either put that in here or I'm going to put it at the end. There'll be timestamps so you can skip around whatever you want, but we'll get into it. And I'm qualified to speak about weight and health because of my own journey. Me and my family, we'd be at lunch on vacation thinking about what we're going to eat for dinner. Then at dinner, where we're going to eat for lunch tomorrow, or what we're going to eat for breakfast the next day. Does the hotel have breakfast? Instead of thinking about where can we go hiking? What boat rides do they have? What biking trails? Stuff like that. What kind of amenities or outside activities? No, we were thinking about what kind of restaurants are in the city. And they were like in the DMs and then getting their wives in the DM. Don't be telling people that. And here's the thing. You do series for 6 weeks on how to get your money right, prosperity and financial blessings for 6 weeks. And then we're going to do a 6 weeks, series on marriage. We're going to do a 6 weeks, but you don't do anything on health and fitness. Why are y'all getting so mad? Because I'm telling the people, which they don't even belong to you. I'm telling the people that, they can take their power back in as far as their health by what they're buying and what they're putting inside of their body. Some of you have fitness trainers and instructors in your congregation. You have nutrition specialists, but you won't utilize them because you feel threatened. And instead of putting your ego aside and saying, hey, you know what? I don't really know anything about that, Dorian, but you're correct. What I'll do is I'll solicit those people that's in my congregation. And if you feel like you're not qualified to speak on that, then have them come up. And you feel like, well, I got to preach if you got to preach every Sunday, fine. Give them at least 10, 15 minutes at the end of your sermon to say, hey guys, we're going to do a 6-week series on our health and our body. But here's what y'all do. You put them on this Daniel fast in January because you know it's coming up and everybody's getting ready to eat vegetables and, sand for 31 days. and to try to get yourself spiritually in tune for the whole year and get your clarity and get yourself ready, then everybody just goes back to the foolery for the next 11 months. And then you're claiming, oh, it's going to be my year. And then you wonder why the next 11 months is a show, because you should have just stayed on what you were doing in January. But a lot of you preachers and leaders, you're just regurgitating what you've seen other people do and other churches do. Oh, we're going to do a fast for 30 days in January because that's just what people do. Instead of, saying, hey, you know what? I don't know nothing about it. Let me call some specialists up here and give them 20 minutes of the time in the church. Call them up and have them, speak to the people and say, okay, this week we're going to focus on exercise. Even if you're elderly and you can't get up, you can't walk, we'll have somebody come into your house and lift your arms up for 30 times this side, 30 times that side, whatever. We'll, instead of sitting around in Bible study, how about we all go walking as a community? If your church is, however you want to do it. I'm just throwing stuff out there. You figure out what's best for you. And then the next week, we're going to focus on your medication. Guys, let's focus on, have somebody come up and talk about it. What can you do to lower it, to decrease it, to get rid of it? Talk to your doctors. What am I really, needing to be on this medication? Could I do something different? Is all I'm saying. That's all I was saying years ago when I wrote my first book, Let's Talk It Out, whatever it is, because I was more faith-based then. And it still stands today. I'm going to get into what the scripture actually says for people that want to know. And then the next week, have someone come up and talk about food and diet. And it's not about preaching a vegan diet or pescatarian or be keto. It's about finding and teaching the people to find what works for them. Start to just evaluate what you're putting in your body, work on it. And I understand what you're thinking is job security when they come up to the prayer line, when they're sick, because you want to be the one to lay hands on them and put oil on them and heal them. Just like this guy who works in the morgue. He's an undertaker? And he said every time they hear the ambulance, they get excited, because that's job security. While we're over here praying, because we were taught to, like, when you see an ambulance, just pray some little prayer over there, pray everybody good. If anybody dies, send comfort to the family. We were taught and trained to do that, but they're over there rejoicing like, ooh, here comes some bodies, get the slabs ready. So before you tell somebody that they're not qualified, let's check yourself. Most of you, and I'm talking about the four, you're walking back and forth on the stage and all people see is belly. That's all we see is belly. And that's all people are looking at is how big your belly is. People won't say it, but I will. They're just looking at, man, his belly is big. They're distracted by that. But you don't care. And that's why it always baffles me when I see officers, police officers, or security guards that are out of shape. Like, who are you going to secure? And we're here to protect and serve. Protect and serve who? This is why they have to use their guns and tasers, because they can't chase anybody. It's not about judging. It is the truth. And just because you see me this way, I've been there. You have to go look at my before pictures that I posted, especially during COVID. It's not about judging. It's just the truth. Who can you protect and serve? Who are you preaching to when you tell them, oh, you need to, watch your temple and watch what the sex and the alcohol and all that. Let me tell you what used to happen too. When I was a first lady of a church, me and my ex-husband, we would always go to this restaurant called Dots after church in Houston. Not every Sunday, but that's where all the preachers and all the ministers would go, all the bishops and some of their, leaders, they would go and sit. And one time I was just sitting there and, my ex-husband was there and our deacons were there. And I would look at the other tables and you could smoke in there. You could go outside and smoke. And I would see all these different pastors from different churches. You start to know the clique of the different churches, the circuit, shall I say. And they would just sit there with plates of pork, fried this and fried that and fried that, after getting in the pulpit, preaching and yelling and screaming. And then we come and eat all of this stuff. But yet I'm not qualified to tell people to check their own health. Are you qualified? And again, I don't care. Smoke, drink, eat whatever you want. Just don't come for me publicly just because people were agreeing with it. Paul said, I beat my body into subjection. Let me read exactly what it said. It said, every athlete exercises self-control in all things, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. When he was talking about the spiritual race and the faith race. Okay, but he was also talking about exercise and diet, because he was also, to my understanding, involved in all of the gladiator activities and things like that. He was referring to what the athletes do. And don't say that it has nothing to do with the spiritual life, because most of the people in your church, in your congregation, are sitting there with food comas or they can't wait for you to stop preaching so they can go get into one. And a lot of times they're sitting there not even focused on what you're saying, because they're sitting there with, all this disease in their body. They can't focus. They don't have the clarity and the mental capacity to hold on to what you're saying or even retain it or keep it for the few days until they see you again, because of the lack of health in their body. So I'm really your ally. I'm really here to help the people have clarity to be able to understand even spiritual truths when they start to work on their physical body. And I'm not making this up. I went to theology school. I have a degree in theology, went to seminary and all that. I have all the resources, all the commentaries that the preachers have. I have thousands of books. I have everything that they have. Now, I'm only reading this because this is what you're going to go look at to see if I'm telling the truth. It says it is the duty. This is what you preach. It is the duty of Christians to follow their ministers closely in the chase of eternal glory, and honor and duty of ministers to lead them in this way. This is in the commentary, that you want them to follow you closely. Where are they following you to? A plate of what? What gym? What exercise? What are they following you to? It says that Paul would not let his body master him. Sometimes he denied even its demand for rightful privileges and pleasures for the greater good. What are you denying? On my page, trying to tell me about me, that I'm not qualified. Speaking of being qualified, personal trainer, I've had clients. Not only that, I know what it is to be an emotional eater. When we were going out to eat, it's because we were happy. Let's celebrate. When we're sad, it's a funeral. We're going to eat. When we're despondent, confused, eat. No emotions at all. Eat. I'm going to get back to this text because y'all got to hear it. If you want to wait to the end to get it, whatever, just listen to it. It's so good. It got so bad that they said, okay, we're going to take you out to eat. And they didn't know each other, but individually, they're like, sis, we're going to take you out to eat because we want to see where you're coming from and why. Because their leadership was being questioned, I suppose, and their followers were liking the posts and stuff like that. So they were like, taking me out to eat. And that's the problem right there. Why we got to go out to eat? You're proving my point. Why can we go anywhere else public? Go out for coffee or for tea. There's so many public places to go because most of the time it was just me and them. And one time one person did bring their wife. So I do respect that, like meeting in public and stuff. But while we were there, they're getting plates of food in their preacher voice. Well, you know, sis, pouring her dressing and stuff. I'm like, cut that voice off. We're in the Olive Garden. Okay, amen. And sis, stop it. Let's just talk. You know, you don't really want to say certain things because, and just eating and eating and eating, but whatever. And they were like, well, we just trying to see where you coming from because, what you mean where I'm coming from? What do you mean? Because we're going to need you to shut the hell up. I basically was telling them, well, you don't even have mastery or discipline over yourself. You tell the people, this time I was in the congregation for this one. You tell the people, I need you to give real hard today because we really need this money, even if you have to eat bologna sandwiches for the week. And I'm like, I don't like bologna. But then you go to their page after church in their Instagram and they've just posted themselves and their family enjoying this platter at Papados. And then you're posting pictures of your daughter in dance classes through the week. I'm like, I just gave all the money I had because, you know, and I don't even like bologna. My daughter likes to dance. She can't be put in dance class. So anyways, and your plate is full of fried this, deep fried that, no judging. I'm just saying, don't tell somebody they're not qualified when you yourself have already been disqualified. But you don't care because you just tore the house down and you just preached and you're in your ego, but yet y'all are dropping dead in the pulpit. And so basically I was saying things like, you know, leaders need to take care of themselves physically and they don't emphasize that enough. And that's why you don't hear it being preached in the pulpit. And some preachers don't talk about it because they themselves have not mastered it, which is fine. Or they feel like it's not necessary for them to talk about it because they're here to talk about your soul and go into glory. Well, some of us are going to get there a whole lot faster because you're not talking about it and you're not preaching it. And if you're not preaching it, then don't get mad at somebody who's on the Facebook preaching it because it's not like I'm in your pulpit or storming down your aisles and screaming with posters. Get fit, save yourselves, get healed. I have the answer. I'm not doing any of that. And to be honest, pastors, preachers, they're watching you. Your people are watching you. They're watching you go back and forth on the pulpit and they are looking at you as far as your health. They watch everything else to see how you interact with your family. They're watching the cars that you drive. They're watching what you post online. They're watching everything about you. So you think they're just going to ignore the fact that you are all belly or you're super overweight? They see that. They see you sweating before you even open up to give the opening text. And not just because you're a sweater, because you are overweight and you are out of shape. They didn't like when I said that, but, and yes, before you rant in the comments, I know not every pastor, not every church is like that. I'm talking about the 4 that addressed me and the others who are too afraid to. There are pastors who do take their churches through these kind of boot camps and yoga classes, and they allow the people that are qualified in the audience to hold classes at church on the weekends, after church, before church. So not everybody's like that. Even myself as the praise and worship leader back in the day, I would have my team run. I'm like, okay, y'all sound out of shape. Y'all cannot breathe. When we're singing these songs, we're about to run some laps. So y'all better get together. I would encourage them to also run on their own, because we're up there dancing and shouting and jumping, and I'm a jumper. So we were up there being super active, and some of them could not even lift their feet to do anything. They could barely move their feet without, oh, Sister Dorian, I don't know. And we're not talking about medical conditions, thyroids, and stuff that they can't change. I'm talking to who I'm talking to. You get offended, you just get offended. I know who I'm talking to, because they were the ones that came to me telling me you can't be telling them about this and that. Instead of coming to the prayer line, why don't they try to take their own health in their own hands and see if they can pray? Literally telling people to pray and ask God about their bodies and what they should do to change their bodies so they don't have to be in the prayer line every week. If you're getting mad about that, and I'm telling you, you yourself need to probably be in a prayer line, I don't care, because I care about people. That has always been my platform. I care about helping people. I do not care about your pride. I do not care about your ego. I do not care. People are dying in your pews. They're dying in these rows because you're not preaching about that stuff, and you just care about their souls. I get it. Well, they're going to go straight on out of here sooner than they should, because we're not addressing it. And then you want to get mad at the people that are. Just admit that you're not qualified and humble yourself and allow somebody who is. Call me in there. I got some other people. Ricky that did a live with me, he's also into this. So you can get anybody that's in your area that can come and help. Well, if you say, well, Dorian, if I have somebody come in for 6 weeks, don't do 6 weeks, do 3 weeks. Have somebody come in for 3 weeks and people ain't going to show up because I'm not preaching. Well, then they don't have to show up. Or like I said, have somebody come up after you preach. Save them some time. I'm only addressing religion because this is what I was in, and the 4 religious leaders that came and talked to me. Then you can add a week to your sermon or your series that says something about, now we want to focus on the people that you hang around with, because now that you're trying to change your mindset and you're striving to do that, let's focus on, have somebody come in and talk about that. Who are you hanging around with? Are they eating correctly? Are they eating healthy? Are they exercising? So let's start talking about our connections. I just released my online course about connections and how it's going to hinder you or propel you into your manifestations. And so talk to them about, who they're going to go eat with and where they're going to go eat. Or even if you're going to stay with these people, how you can start making better choices to maybe influence them to eat better. It's all about feeling good and feeling better. I hate feeling bad. I just want to feel good. And I'm sure other people do too. So it doesn't matter what your faith is. If you're watching the video, anybody can get something out of this. And this is some of the stuff that I talk about in my online health course that is going to be released as well. And this part is so good. We preach in the pulpits, abstinence, staying, away from sex, but you don't talk about abstinence in diet, staying away from certain foods and certain things, because you yourself have not mastered that. And remember who I'm talking to. I'm talking about the obese ones that were fussing and getting mad, and they were being rude. And I was like, look, in my DMs and stuff, that, the nice ones, took me out to lunch to talk about it. But other people were getting mad and whatever. Mainly the obese ones, the ones that were out of shape and were not qualified to even be talking to me. Paul was talking about an eternal race. He wasn't actually talking about an actual race. Yes, he was. That's why he used race and athletes as an analogy, referring to the Grecian games. And speaking of qualification, just admit that you don't know anything about this, so you're not qualified to talk about it. But don't come down on other people that are qualified to talk about it. I know a coach, for example, who runs with his girls. He runs with the athletes. He gets out there with them, and he's in shape. And so it's easier to listen to a coach that's in shape, tell me what to do, versus one that's not, that only stands there and has to yell across the court or yell across the field because they can't run alongside us. And no judgment. I was there. So don't get offended, whatever. And so it's hard to listen to some leaders sometimes when you're trying to tell me about discipline and mastery over my finances, or as a wife, you need to be disciplined and, have mastery as a wife over your mouth. What about mastery over your mouth and what you put inside? Okay. When they come to the house of God, it's not about their physical body. It's about their spiritual body. So being healthy and being fit is not spiritual. I do believe the text talks about gluttony and how your body is the temple of God. Stop it. Just say you was mad and you didn't like what I said and you didn't like that your people agreed. And if it wasn't important, why is Paul talking about it? I haven't even got to what I want to show you, what he specifically was saying. It's so good. So I hope you stay for that part. And it's not a lot. I'm just going to read the key points. But if it's not so important, why is he talking about it? He's literally talking about exercise and diet. If it wasn't important, then the whole Bible would just be talking about Jesus and glory and be saved and accept Lord, Jesus Christ as your Savior. And he wouldn't mention it at all if it wasn't important. Again, if you're going to be one of those leaders that take your people through the 30-day fast in January and then y'all go back to whatever in February, that's fine. Anything is good. Anything will help. But I'm just saying, why not? Why not push it? Let's try 2 months. Let's try it again. Let's try to just stay on good. And it's okay to do it even if you go back to what you're doing in February, because some people get on it and then they stay on it. So it's always helpful. Somebody will catch it and say, you know what? I'm really feeling good. I think I'm going to stay on this. I mean, that's the way we're supposed to be eating anyway. So, I mean, think about it. We're doing the 30-day fast in these churches because we want clarity and we want to get everything right. We don't want clarity in February and March. In the rest of the year, we don't want to have a clear state of mind and a healthy body for the rest of the year, just January. And the rest of the year is a fog, just mental fog. Now we're going to end it with this. This is what he said. He said, those that ran in their games were kept to a set diet. The fighters and wrestlers in your exercises are kept to strict diet and discipline, and they do not indulge themselves. This is what Paul was talking about. But they restrain themselves from the food they eat and from the liberties on other occasions. They used a very spare diet and coarse food and denied themselves much to prepare for their race and combat. Those who fought with one another in these exercises prepared themselves by beating the air. You know how you see boxers before they start, they're doing like that. So that's how they would prepare themselves, by beating the air or by throwing out their arms. Oh, listen to this. One enemy the apostle here mentions, namely the body, says that the body is your enemy. It must be kept under, beaten, black, and blue. Woo! By the body, we are to understand fleshly appetites and inclinations. The apostle set himself to curb and conquer. You know how we talk about taking supplements and doing certain things to curb your appetite, right? So he says here, he set himself to curb and conquer. And we must beat down our bodies and keep them under. We must combat hard with fleshly lusts and not indulge a wanton appetite. Ooh. The body must be made to serve the mind. Oh, this is powerful. Listen. The body must be made to serve the mind, not suffered to lord over it. Your body must serve the mind. What is your mind telling it to do? That's my whole brand, what I had in mind. You can't manifest things if your body is telling you what to do and telling you when to eat and how much to eat. Your body has to be a slave to the mind. Okay? It must serve your mind, not suffer to lord over it. Then it talks about abstinence and diet, unless that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be disqualified.